Well, here we go. Been a while. All right. We're just going to give it a few seconds here to get the ball rolling, I guess. And then we're going to talk some Changeling the Lost second edition today. I know that's different, right? Anybody who's a subscriber and they're an EVE player, they're going to be like, what the hell? But if you've watched the Hellfire bull crap that's been going on in EVE Online lately, I think you could probably figure out why I want nothing to do with EVE Online right now. That'll be an episode in itself in the future. So, yeah. Not my normal day to stream, not my normal time to stream. Got out of the office a little early today on purpose so that I could do a 1 hour stream on Changeling the Lost and the Lost in Sydney server in particular. So, yeah. Let me ping my people. Get that out there. And we're going to talk about it. Let me put it out at one other place. Boop. There we go. Put that on a couple servers. Let people know that I'm on. Got a bunch of stuff going on Discord. Okay, so hello. How's it going? Let me do a little wave. Do what's up? What's up? Right on. How you guys doing? Gotta stay hydrated. Gotta stay hydrated, especially because it's 105 stinking degrees in Houston, Texas right now. 105 degrees. It is nuts. I just had to go out in my backyard and wet down my sulcata tortoise that lives in our backyard. He's about this big. He's about that big. He's bigger than my head. And it's a she. I don't know why I keep saying he. I guess because we just found out what the sex of the tortoises, but she is so big and she does fine out there and she has shade and everything. And sulcata tortoises are African tortoises. They're naturally okay in the heat, but it's just really stinking consistently hot out there. So I'm going out twice a day and just kind of hosing her off a little bit with some cool water and making sure she's good. And she kind of wallows in it and just enjoys it. But it is stinking hot. It is so hot outside that my dogs, who, when I let them out, they don't want to come in, they're going out, they're doing their business, they're coming right back in. It's been nuts. 109 today, Sharon says. Holy cow, you're in Vegas, right, buddy? You're in Vegas. I'm pretty sure you're in Vegas. Shadow says it's 71.6 degrees in Denmark, and it's almost midnight. Well, happy midnight to you. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. And 71 degrees sounds amazing to me. I'm a Yankee. I'm not a Texan. I grew up in New Jersey on the East Coast of the United States. And I grew up on the water, like quite literally on the water. I could walk out my front door, hang a right, and there was the Atlantic Ocean. And I'm a Navy guy. I like a breeze. I like generally temperate or colder weather is more my thing. I like the cold. In high school, I was a snowboarder. I liked and a hockey player, so I like the cold. But I've lived here in Texas now for since 2005 or 6, and this is probably the worst summer that I've been down here heat wise. It's just nuts. It's just totally nuts. Drives me up the wall. And you people do the whole, like Sharon, our good buddy Sharon here. He's from Las Vegas, or he lives in Las Vegas, and people be like, oh, it's real hot out here, but it's a dry heat. I don't care if it's a dry heat or a wet heat. Heat is freaking heat, and it's annoying, right? So if you walk down the sidewalk and the soles of your shoes can stick to the sidewalk, it's too damn hot. So it drives me nuts. But anyway, okay, so I generally have two groups of viewers on my stream. I've got my EVE Online friends, because I played EVE for just earlier this month was my 18th anniversary of playing EVE Online. And then I have my other friends that are more of the and viewers that are here for my tabletop RPG stuff that we do on Discord. Today's stream definitely does cater toward the tabletop RPG stuff. I don't run one out of my house. We run it over Discord. It is a slow post, play by post role-playing game. Okay, so we have dice roller bots in there, and it does all that stuff that you would do if you were sitting at a table with your friends. And so a couple advantages to that. If you're not sure what that is, I'm going to briefly talk about it. We have a persistent world server called Lost in Sydney, and it is a Changeling the Lost 2nd edition game. That's this book right here that we're looking at, Changeling the Lost, which is... it stems off of the old World of Darkness stuff that was White Wolf. Now this stuff is owned by a company called Onyx Path Publishing, and they've kind of taken the mantle from White Wolf, and they run with it. So this is in what is called the Chronicles of Darkness. Okay, you have the old World of Darkness, Vampire the Masquerade, Werewolf the Apocalypse, Changeling the Dreaming. Then you have the new World of Darkness, Vampire the Requiem, Werewolf the Forsaken, right? Then you have what they called the Chronicles of Darkness, which is a lot more it's personal horror. Okay, so the difference being like Vampire the Masquerade is, I would call that like world or global horror. It has a theme. It can get very political, in-game politics. And it is a very well meshed out game in the sense that there's clans, and these clans hold certain cities and areas of the globe and whatnot. It is focused a lot on bigger picture. A lot of it is focused on bigger picture. It doesn't have to be. It's always up to the storyteller, your dungeon master, but generally it's a little more bigger picture. Chronicles of Darkness was a chance for the publishers to roll that back in a different direction and make it a lot more dark and focus more on the individual player in what's called personal horror. Okay, meaning the stories that your storyteller is going to focus on has more to do with things that would be there's things that are global or area wide, but there's a lot of things that are personal to you. Okay, things that will affect you in one way or another, not just have an impact on the whole group. So there's things that will be very, very personal to your character. And at first I was like, you know what? I don't know if I'm really into this. I'm an old World of Darkness guy, and I like the way things went with that, and I enjoy it. And I still do. That's still where my heart is. However, the more and more I read about the Chronicles of Darkness stuff, the more I like how I can storytell in this. And storytellers are the dungeon masters of this game. Okay, so it is our job to create and guide the world, and then the players are in it, and they do their things within it, and then we just kind of throw roadblocks in their way, I guess you can say, for their own character development. We create scenes and stories that help them move along and develop their story. However, with it being let me pull this up over here. With it being a persistent server of a world we made, we decided to go with Changeling the Lost, which can be very, very dark. All right, and we're going to get into it a little bit about what that is in a second. So we're going to talk about some whys. Okay, so number one, why did we decide Chronicles of Darkness when we were forming this role-playing server? Why Chronicles of Darkness versus Old World of Darkness 20th edition, the stuff that I grew up with, that I'm used to, that I have. That's only a couple of the books over there. Those are the ones I'm using currently, so they're within reach. The books that I've had, some of these books I've had since I was a teenager in the 90s. Why didn't we stick with that? Well, the four of us that decided to build this server, Kelsey, Iris, Jake, and myself, three of us were storytellers on a vampire server, which if you look back through the history of my shows, you'll see us talk about it at one point. Kelsey and I did a show about our Las Vegas server where we run Vampire the Masquerade over there with a team. We're part of a team. It's somebody else's server, but we're on the storytelling team. And we wanted to do something a little different. We wanted to do things our way. And instead of just making another vampire server and we decided we wanted to challenge ourselves. And when we were looking at all the different splats, all the different types of games within this world of darkness, when we came to Changeling the Lost, we decided that this was a great opportunity for us to do some personal horror and really connect with the people that are on our server, the players that are on our server, and to really give ourselves a challenge when it comes to interacting with the players, because that's what it's all about. You pretty much have two types of people that are on these Discord servers. You have the folks that are there to play a character. Okay, they have a character in mind. Sorry, I just hit the microphone. They have a character in mind. They're going to design that character, and I'm going to show you what one of those looks like here in a minute. And with that, they want to play it and they want to grow it. Okay, so think about if you're an MMORPG player, you're more of a video game person. Think of it as like a character on a MMO where you make it at level 1 and you're going to run them up and you're going to make that character last as long as you can. Me as an Eve player, that's my Aridus Ganel character. I've been playing him for 18 years. There's a story that goes with that character, in-game and out of game. The people I've met along the way, the friends I've made in Vegas, all that kind of stuff, right? Hey, Jake. Jake's the big boss when it comes to decision making in what happens in the game. He's like our master storyteller. So that's Jake in there. So those are the players. Those are the people who make up the citizens of the server that you're playing on, right? Then you have the storytellers. Those are the people who, while we also enjoy playing the game, and I'm sorry if you keep seeing my eyes go to the side, that's where my chat is. That's where I'm looking at you guys talking. When I got a message. Yep. So the storytellers are people like myself. I enjoy playing the game, but at the same time, I also like telling a story. I love to be the person who is challenging someone else, creating a situation and putting them in it and seeing how they interact, react, proactively attack the problems I throw at them. So some people like to be in the story themselves as the hero or the protagonist or the antagonist. Some people like to be the author writing the story. Personally, I prefer to be the writer to the player. I love playing too. I absolutely do. And some of us do both, right? Because it's good. It's kind of like if you coach a sports team, every once in a while you want to go out and hit the ball as well with some friends, right? It's the same thing. But hey, Smash, what's up, brother? But this is something I've completely sunk my my spare time into over the past few months. When I stepped away from EVE Online, because EVE Online has become toxic shit, I had to do something with my time so I didn't go insane. And I had just found a really good roleplay server, and I wasn't really even looking for one, but I found one. It's it's called Las Vegas, the Sinful City. It's a Vampire the Masquerade 20th edition server. I met some really cool people there and really started having a good time. And I found that I can play that on my time, right? I didn't have to be there all the freaking time. Like with EVE Online, we had so much going on and always had something going on. I could step away when I needed to with Vampire. So then when we decided to make our own server, we looked at all these different areas around the globe. Quite literally, we pulled up Google Maps, and myself, Kelsey, Jake, and Iris were on a voice call in Discord, and we're like, where do we want this to take place? Where do we want it to be? And this episode almost could have been called Lost in New Orleans, because we were this close to making it a New Orleans server, because there's so much you can do with New Orleans, Louisiana. There's so much history and there's so much culture. Pardon me. There's so much that goes on there. It's right on the water. It's on the Gulf. So you can have aquatic themes as well as swamp themes and inland themes and all this stuff. And then we were looking at the East Coast. We were looking at New Jersey, where I grew up. There's a little town called Keyport, which has a lot of weird history and areas around. It's very Lovecraftian. We were looking at Massachusetts, around Salem, all these different places that would have fit. Portland, Oregon, all these different places that would have fit. And all of a sudden, as we were talking, we started talking about Australia. And that's where Jake is from. And we started talking about why don't we do Australia? You know, a lot of people don't do games based in Australia. By and large, they don't. Most of the games that you find for these type of tabletop RPGs on Discord are based out of the United States or Europe. That's where the vast majority of them are. And that's because players are generally from those areas and they are comfortable with those locales. Okay? Well, again, we were talking and we wanted a challenge. We wanted to try something a little different. And there are some challenges with picking Sydney, Australia. Some of those challenges are, number one, most of us have never been there. The closest I came was Darwin, Australia when I was in the Navy, and that was over 20 years ago. Okay? I loved it. It was cool. I've never been to Sydney. I'd love to go there, but I've never been there. The only person on our team who has knowledge of Sydney is Jake. So we rely heavily on him for that. Okay. Everything else we get is YouTube, Wikipedia, the internet, right? All that stuff, like everybody else. And there's a challenge that goes with that. Another one of the challenges is culturally, even though Americans think like, okay, you know, Australia, I get it, right? I get it. We recognize the accent. We know some things about, they got kangaroos and they've got this and that. And there was a wildfire a couple years ago. And there's some things we know. But when it comes to day-to-day interactions with Australians, we don't really know that. That's like I wouldn't know day-to-day interactions on how people in the Czech Republic are. I don't. It's a beautiful country. I'd like to visit there. But I've never been there and I don't interact with them. So there's some challenges with that and trying to make it an authentic venue for us to play the game. So we all started digging deep and doing research. Jake was throwing links at us. We're reading things. We're watching videos. Slang was a big thing for us. Let's talk about slang. You know, Americans and a lot of people outside of Australia think, you know, we hear the let's throw some shrimp on the Barbie. Australians don't call them shrimp. They call them prawns. So the shrimp on the Barbie thing, that's not even a thing. That's like me being from New Jersey. If I say to somebody, hey, I'm from New Jersey, the first thing they say is, New Jersey, what exit? Nobody in New Jersey says that, right? Nobody says it. Or somebody from Chicago and people go, oh, Chi-Town. Most people from Chicago do not call it freaking Chi-Town. It's something that is said from outside. Hey, Z, what's up, brother? Speaking of Chicago, speaking of Chi-Town, my buddy Z. So there's all these things that like they're either stereotypes or they're tropes that are untrue. And we wanted to get through that. We wanted to make it a little more authentic. So not only are people playing in an authentic venue, but they're learning something as well, right? And that's the key thing. They're having fun and they're growing while their character grows. The other thing is respect for the culture, all right? Aboriginal culture native culture in Australia is a protected thing, okay? The native folks of Australia do not like outsiders coming in and using their myths, their legends, their history, and turning it into pop culture, okay? I don't blame them. Okay? That's been done with so many cultures throughout the world. It can be done in a respectful way. But because we do not know enough, the team that I'm part of, we do not know enough about that culture. We made the decision, with Jake's blessing, we'll say, as an Australian, that we were not going to incorporate native Australian myths, legends, and things like that into our game. It's just not going to be a thing. We're not pretending it doesn't exist, but we're trying to be respectful of it. Now, as we move forward, if there's something that we say, hey, you know, there's a history or a legend of this place and we would like to bring it into the story, that's where we as a storyteller team would sit down with Jake and talk about it, and we would get his feel for it and see if it's something that's we could do and do it respectfully. You know, there's also the story of the Onyx Path developers, the people who developed this game, this system. In one of their books, I think it was Oak, Ash, and Thorn, there's an error in the editing where in the beginning of the book it talks about they talk about the freehold of Sydney. And the freehold's like the town that the magical town that the changelings live in. And that's where we're at. We're lost in Sydney. But then when you get to the page that's supposed to be on, it talks about Dublin. It talks about Dublin instead. And what had happened was when they were in one of their final editing processes, the folks at Onyx Path said, you know what? We are not going to be, we do not know enough about Australian history, mythology, spiritual beliefs, and culture of the native peoples to do it justice. And we don't want to just throw it in there and be insulting. So they pulled it out. They changed it to Dublin. They forgot to change it in the little blurb in the beginning of the book that says something about, where instead of changing it from, they didn't change it from Sydney to Dublin. Okay. So the whole thing there is we want to be respectful as well. This is a game, but at the same time, we are designing this game ourselves, this world using their system. And we wanted to be as professional as we can when we did it. We wanted to be respectful. So there was that challenge. Another challenge that you run into with Discord servers that are slow post, play by post, where people can post when they have a chance, is finding the right players. Okay. Now if you're on my stream, I can be elitist. I was an EVE Online player for 18 years and Smashies that's in here, one of the moderators in my channel, and Z, we can be some elitist bastards, right? There's some people we like and there's some people we don't, and we have no problem telling them that we don't fucking like them. That's how it is. We're adults and unless you're paying my mortgage, you ain't gonna tell me how to think, right? And nobody pays my mortgage, but me. So we're a little bit elitist with the server, a little bit, in the sense that it is not just an open link anyone can join and come onto the Lost in Sydney server. You have to contact a certain member of the team. That member will send you a questionnaire. You fill out the questionnaire, and then we as a team, the storyteller team, will review it and decide whether or not we want to give you a shot or not. Then you can come onto the server. We send you a link. You can come onto the server. We will we'll give you the information you need to build your character. And then from there, during the character creation process, if we feel it's a fit, then you get to stick around. I know that might sound a little harsh, but think of it this way. Any game you've ever played, anyone in this chat room right now, I'm sure at some point you've been in a game. I don't care if it's a tabletop game, World of Warcraft, EVE Online, whatever, a game on the playground when you were in school. There's usually someone that's there that you're like, why is this person here? Right? There's always someone out there that they just don't fit, right? They're a dick. They're a jerk off. They are rude to other players, whatever. Okay. There's someone usually there. The whole process we go through is to try to weed a lot of that out. The edgelords, okay, that's a big thing with the internet, especially on Discord, is the edgelords. That is probably the thing that gets under my skin the most, are the people who come in and instead of saying, I want to create a really cool changeling character that I have this picture in my head of what they are and who they are going to be and where they came from, their dark story, that horror story that they have inside their heart with their broken soul. And I want to play that character. We get people that come in and they say things like, I want to create the most unique, boundary-pushing, rule-breaking character that I can. Will you let me do it? And then at that point, that character becomes no fun for everyone else on the server. So we're not saying everybody has to be cookie cutter, because we don't want anybody to be cookie cutter. But there's pushing the limits with a good story, and that can be fun. And then there's pushing the limits for no other sake than pushing the limits. And we try to weed those people out. We've had to weed a couple people out. We weeded two of them out this week. I had a player that a prospective player that when we were reviewing their character sheet, we were saying that really doesn't fit. You're putting points in somewhere on their character sheet and saying it does one thing, but it really doesn't do that. Can we adjust that? Let's talk about it. And they doubled down and they got obstinate and said, absolutely not. I want it this way and I'm the player and that's how it's going to be. Okay, we'll go play somewhere else. This is my game world. Right? Now, there's an other side to that. You can be, as a storyteller, as a DM, you can be a dick and be too heavy-handed. We try not to be heavy-handed. Our job isn't to create fun constantly for all the players on our server. Our job is to create a setting and to throw little mini stories out there toward the bigger story to give players something to do. The majority of the role play that takes place on our server is player and player in a social or semi-social interaction. right? So that's where the meat of it is. And then I've been throwing out, I'm doing different things. And I'm going to kind of pull this up real quick. There's some things I would like to show you guys about this server, right? So go ahead and look at this real quick. So on our server, when you come here, welcome to Lost in Sydney. We talk about some things, but there's certain things we do on this server that many other servers probably do not do. Like a German Shepherd Druid. CNZ, like when we talk about that, right? The D&D thing that we tried, the Dungeons and Dragons thing that we tried, failed for 2 reasons. Number one, I haven't done D&D in 20 years. More than 20 years, 30 years. I haven't done D&D in 30 years. And I wasn't really prepared to do it. So that's on me. Number two, it was an open world. So the interactions had to be at certain times, and we all have busy schedules, and that didn't really work for us, especially me. That was kind of a big thing, right? And number three, while I loved the what we were trying to do there, I think we kind of it wasn't meshing right. Just wasn't meshing right. So that's on me. I own that. So yeah, we're going to talk about the Bill of Rights here in a second, actually, Jewel. So we got our welcome, right? So some of the things, so we have a content warning on here. All right. We've got a little graphic that talks about how, now that you're on the server, how to make your character and all that, right? Because this isn't a video game. It doesn't hold your hand as you walk through it. You got to kind of do it yourself. We have server rules, okay? And I mean, these are just general things. Treat your fellow players with respect, no malicious language, sexual content. We allow sexual content on our server. This is an adult-themed game. This is an 18-plus game. If you're not 18, you can't be on here. We allow sexual content between players. However, it has to be in a fade to black. So in other words, if it's getting to that point where you and another character or whatever are about to do the hanky-panky, you do a little note that says fade to black, and then you take it to private messages. And then afterwards, if it is story relative, that's something that the storytellers need to know about moving your characters forward, you have a private channel on the server that you can talk to. It is just the storytellers and you. You can post it in there, and we record it for you. So we can do that. A little bit of hanky-panky. What's up, Chumpkin? So I demand a story about how puddles steal people's souls. I'm actually doing a story about that right now, believe it or not. It's just a really big puddle. It's the bay outside of Sydney. Okay, so, there's the different rules. I'm not going to go through them all, but they're on there. This is something that we decided we were going to do that I am proud of, that we as a storyteller team came up with, and I am going to go through these. Most times when you go to a tabletop role-playing game, play-by-post server on Discord, the rules focus more on do what the DM says, don't be a dick, and if you don't like it, leave. Okay? And that gives a lot of power to the storytellers to abuse things over time. And it's usually a slow erosion of a player's ability to have fun. So we set down a Bill of Rights for our players, so that we can say, okay, these are the things we are promising you, and we're going to do our best to stay within these bounds. Okay. So number one, players will be treated with respect. The staff will not use their position as leaders on the server to bully, insult, or otherwise degrade players. Even with the 2 people we got rid of this week, we were not rude to them. We were professional, and we explained why we were getting rid of them. It wasn't you're an edgelord dick or anything like that. It was your character is really not going to fit with what we do here. So you have the option of, we can try to fine tune that with you and try to get you on a path that we think will fit into the wider story, or we can part ways and via con Dios, and that's that. And they chose to leave. So that's that. Number 2, we will do our best to create a fun social environment free of real-world drama. We will strive to create engaging, fun storylines for all players within the bounds of the rules and overall vision of the game world we have created. So we will do our best to create a fun social environment free of real-world drama. What that means is we do not want people bringing real drama into the game world. Okay? Every one of us have bad days. We have friends on this server. We're making friends with these folks that are here. So we will occasionally talk about personal things. Man, my kids are being crazy today. Or, I had a really bad day at work. Or, oh man, I got fired today. Whatever, having money troubles. We'll occasionally talk about that with each other. That's okay. But we're not going to bring those things into the game. We're also not going to bring things in that are hot points right now. Okay? So, like, while we will talk about the fact that it's been raining nonstop in Sydney, for real, for a while now, and we're working that into the story, we're not going to necessarily work in if there was, like, a murder in Sydney, like a particular one. Like, let's say we read a news article about someone who's killed. We're not going to put that in there. That's not what it's for. So, number 3, we will not tolerate bigotry, hate, or abuse to the storytellers, by the storytellers, or between players. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, right? That's just saying we're all going to treat each other with respect. You would be surprised how often on Discord servers storytellers catch hate from players, and it's usually the players that have these edgy, boundary pushing characters, and that's why we wanted to try to keep those to an absolute bare minimum, is because when you let that in and then these people want to push boundaries and we have to put our hand up and say we're not going to allow that action you're trying to do can't happen, people get upset. Most players, 99.9% of players, say okay, thank you, ST, and we move on and we try to find a different way to solve that problem. Okay? Some people are belligerent and they want to keep bashing their head into the wall until somebody tells them that the wall fell down. We're not going to play that game. We're putting that right out there, right off the bat. So frosting is it's less personal stuff. So the personal stuff, frosting, is your character's personal stuff, because this is a game of personal horror. So things that your character have that are personal are allowed. But if it's personal to you and it's kind of a touchy subject, feel free to not talk about that in open. We're not saying you can't, but just be aware, like, you know, when you put yourself out there on the internet with drama, usually drama attracts drama, right? So we want people to, like, if you have a hard day at work, we want you to be able to come to Lost in Sydney and have a good time and not worry about work. Does that make sense? Like, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make it a little more fun. We want this to be a safe place in that sense, right? In that you can put all that other crap away for a few hours and just relax and let your mind drift into your character and have fun with that. You know, immerse yourself into Sydney. So if that makes any sense. Okay, so number 4, storytellers will not intentionally create unwinnable situations for the players. All ST created stories will have multiple avenues for completion unless a player continues to go against the guidance or advice of the presiding ST in a flagrant and flamboyant manner, and creates a situation that is unwinnable. All scenarios will have built-in escape plans. Let me tell you this. There are times that players on other servers, I have seen it, create an unwinnable situation despite multiple storytellers telling the player, do you realize what you are about to do is going to cause this, that, or the other thing? And they will say, I don't care. We actually had, I'm gonna use an example from the Vegas server. We had a guy that was an edgelord. Everything he did, he constantly wanted to buck the rules. He wanted to go against what was the norms for the vampire game. And he did it because he thought that was him being cool. Okay. And he ran into my character in the game. The character I play on that server is, he was embraced, he's made a vampire while in the military. He was a military working dog handler. He is a combat-focused, PvP-focused character. And my character over there has kind of had developed and Jake's as well, have developed kind of a reputation for being player killers. I didn't make him that way on purpose. He's just a very combat-oriented character in a social game. This guy ran into my guy in the proverbial dark alley and wanted to push boundaries. He wanted to keep pushing, and he was told not to do it. He was told not to go to that zone that was controlled by a certain group. He did it anyway. He walked around smug and wanted to be a jerk. He was told he should probably leave. He wouldn't. He encountered my character who had been out there before him in the zone. My guy, before I even knew that guy was there, my guy had been there on patrol. He showed up. He was intentionally trying to get himself in trouble because he thought that the storytellers would give him a pass and let him do what he wanted. His character is on ice now. So you can only give somebody so many opportunities before sometimes those characters, those edgy characters, gotta go, right? So like Jake just said, we don't just kill characters, we find the players, right? So here's the thing. When I'm storytelling a scenario, I will usually have in that when we reach the choke points in the scenario where there has to be decisions made, I will usually, in my head, I'll have a possible social avenue to get out of it, a possible combat avenue to get out of it, and a possible puzzle solving avenue to get out of it. Not all of them have that, but there's usually multiple ways to solve a problem. And then there's the other category where the player totally blows me away with their creativity with something, and I say that could work, and I let them do it. Okay, that's great. If it's creative and it will actually work within the bounds of the game, fantastic. So that's the thing. We're not going to try to kill players off. But if a player insists on suiciding their character through bad choices when they are being counseled not to, we will not stop them from doing it. We're all adults here. If you want to get your character eaten by a great white shark when you've been told not to go in a certain area, re-roll a new character. That one's dead. He got munched. Right? We haven't had to do that to anybody yet. But at some point it will probably happen. Now there's other players out there that say, I intend for my character to die at some point. I know my character will not survive. And as long as they're not doing it in a story-breaking way, we'll roll with that. They'll be able to kill off or retire that character in a way that they, at the end of it, they come back to us and they say, you know what? That was fun. They went out just as I wanted them to go out, and that was cool. So that's cool, but that's part of the story. But we're not going to intentionally try to kill off characters. Number 5, storytellers will work hard to be available when needed, but real life comes first. That's just fact. That's why it's a slow post play-by-post server. We are there for the express purpose of helping the players have fun and to clarify rules and to push the story forward for the meta that we're designing. But at the same time, I work a full-time job. I run a business. My wife works a full-time job. I've got 5 dogs. I got a sulcata tortoise. I got a kid in college. I've got vacations coming up. And I also have to sleep sometimes. I can't be there all the time. Jake's on the butt cheek of the planet. So generally when we're awake here in the United States, Jake's knocked out. He's asleep. So we got coverage, and Kelsey works. Iris works. We all have things we got to do. We do our best. And we promise to get to people as soon as we can. Sometimes things take a little bit of time, but we usually tell people, thank you for your patience. We're going to get back to you this as soon as we can. We don't just leave people hanging if we can help it. So, and that's the same thing like with posting in our scenarios. If we're waiting on a response for someone in the role play itself, in the in-character sections, it may take some time. That's okay. That's okay. If it's something that we need to move along because there's something else going on or there's a bunch of people waiting, we might say, the storyteller might step in and say, okay, we're going to assume that his character does this. And we'll just make it that, they're kind of in a safe little bubble following along. So things like that. Black Apple Necromancy. This is Kelsey. Our group was lethal. Yes, that is true. Kelsey owns the Lost in Sydney server. So hello, Kelsey. And anyone who watched our, the episode I did about a month ago on the Black Hand, is a little over a month ago, on the Black Hand for Vampire 20th Edition. Kelsey was my special guest. Let's see here. So again, we talked about this a little while ago. Number 6, storytellers will respect the native culture of Australia and will not use their legends, lore, and way of life as a story lover. The storytellers of Lost in Sydney vow to adhere to the requests of the native people of Australia and not use their culture as a fictional story lover within our world of darkness. If a player wishes to make a native character, they will have to go through a very stringent interview process with the senior storyteller, who is Jake, prior to approval. I gotta tell you, that is going to be a very, very stringent look. Very stringent look. I would not want people insulting my relatives, my ancestry, my history. I would want respect shown. Now, here's the thing. When we say respect shown, that doesn't mean that you can't do it. It just means that you're going to be held to a much higher standard with what you do. A much higher standard. Okay? So just be advised. If you're one of those top level RP people and you're like, I challenge accepted, submit the character sheet or the concept to us, talk about it. We might say yes. But if you think you're gonna make like a native Australian that walks around, he's like, I walk around with a boomerang and a didgeridoo and I talk with my Australian accent and I'm just going to kind of, be very, very stereotypical and tropey. We're not going to allow it. We're not going to allow it. So Frosting Cat says, I didn't want to play a native because I'm still very inexperienced with the people and cultures of Australia. So that's good. That's very wise of you to say that. Okay. So it's very wise of you to say that, because that's a good thing. Now, who knows? Maybe 6 months from now, when, after we're generally saying, I forget, Jake will have to Jake or Kelsey can correct me. I forget what we said. It's 90 days or 180 days of clean, no problem play on the server. We may allow people to start having a second character. So after you've been here and you're a veteran of the server for a while, maybe you're going to say, you know what? Let me talk with them. Maybe I do want to roll something a little more hardcore. Okay, well, we'll talk about it. Okay. Excuse me. Storytellers will not play favorites. This is a big deal on a lot of servers, and that's why we put it in here. Storytellers will not play favorites. The storytellers commit to keeping the playing field level and fun for all players who actively and positively develop their personal stories and join in server activities. We will not play favorites. However, players that are active and help develop the server will naturally see more benefits than someone who plays for, say, 1 hour per month. This is not favoritism. It's just rewards for activity. That's a fact, okay? This is not an every kid gets a trophy server. If you participate and you go above and beyond, you're going to be rewarded for that. That is not playing favorites. Okay? That is most certainly not playing favorites. The people who are stepping up, and when we get a new player, it says, hey, I need an opening scene. I need an introduction scene. Can someone meet me in the pub so I can kind of start getting into role play? And they're like, yeah, come on in. I'll meet you. And they consistently do that. We appreciate that. That takes the load off of the storytellers to pull NPCs to go do that. We appreciate that, and that's what we want. We want the players interacting. The NPCs are just there as story levers. We really want the PCs running this. And that's eventually, the PCs will be for the different courts that you guys see right there. You can see it up in the, like where it says Spring Court right there above my big bald noggin. Eventually, we want the players to be the ones in the royalty spots, electing their own royalty or doing whatever it is that their court decides to do to select royalty. We don't want the NPCs to do it. We want them doing it so it'll be more fun. Let's see here. Frosty Cat says, you get the feeling that DMs in other games have their own friend groups and they reward sometimes. That's correct. And we're trying to make sure we're saying ahead of time that we're not going to do that. Jake says that is something we've noticed and we're keeping a heavy eye on. Exactly. So we'll not play favorites. Number 8, storytellers who have player characters will not reap godlike benefits for their characters. Okay. So I have a character on the server named Rainy. And I play her occasionally. I haven't really done much with her, but I play her occasionally. And I've been doing more storytelling than playing myself until we get things rolling. That's probably how it's going to be. No big deal. But when character development day comes up every week, when I get to claim my experience, I don't get anything extra for being a storyteller. Like I can't just assign her points and things that I want. Like, oh, great. I'm a storyteller. I'm just going to give her whatever abilities I want. Nope. She's got to advance just like everybody else. Just like everybody else. And that's good because that does a couple things. Number one, it means that I have things to look forward to from that aspect for her growth. It's not just given to me. You're not hitting the tilde on the keyboard and entering /God mode, right? And then number two, it allows me to see how long things take to be worthwhile. Like if I need to get I want to get my 4th dot in something driving, right? I want to get up to 4 dots. Well, I have to be able to justify that with roleplay. What have I been doing that makes that get to that point? I got to make sure our systems are being realistic with that, so it's not unfair to other players. So if I can just give myself a 4th dot, that would be stupid. That doesn't really help. So that's why we do it. Frosting says, or let me go back. Shadow says, I love meeting new people, brand new ideas, and people with amazing ideas. I was thinking of offering it as a service to my court for new autumn members. That's cool. And Frosting says, the server has been very welcoming so far and has been amazing meeting everyone and getting involved on the server. And we do appreciate that. We're really, really trying to do it. We're putting a lot of our effort into making sure that this is a good launch. Server's only been up, guys, for a little over 3 weeks. A little over 3 weeks that we've been live, like open invites. So let me go through this real quick because this is something that might be interesting to people. Okay, this is the story so far about Lost in Sydney. Welcome to Lost in Sydney, Changeling the Lost 2nd Edition roleplay server within the White Wolf Onyx Path Publishing Chronicles of Darkness world. Uh, it is the present day in Sydney, Australia. COVID-19 has remade the world into a much more cautious and somewhat less active place. Thankfully, it seems like we are starting to come out of the horror that was the pandemic, but the scars of loss still remain. The freehold of Sydney is overseen by 4 seasonal courts. While they generally balance each other out, there is an underlying current of political intrigue between both the courts and internally as well. Due to the inherent magical, mystical nature of Australia, there are many places around Sydney that have easy ingress or egress when it comes to the hedge. That's the magical area that the Fae come from. I'm assuming here that most people that are listening right now understand the backstory of what Changeling is. If not, I will do an entire episode on that because that will take a few hours. But it's the magical area. Let's just put it that way for my Eve players that might be hanging out. Sydney, however, is a blight on the magical land. Commercial development, overpopulation, and corruption, both mundane and mystical, have taken its toll on the area. The freehold of Sydney is the last bastion of hope for many lost in New South Wales. Despite their myriad differences, the seasonal courts all concur on one thing. The lost residents of Sydney must work together to keep their home and thus themselves safe and secure. Vampires, shapeshifters, mages, hunters, and other denizens of darkness abound beneath the facade of progress in Sydney. Many of these creatures vie for control of vital resources and territory throughout the city and surrounding areas. The lost can expect to encounter these residents from time to time. Thanks to the efforts of the courts, incursions by huntsmen and the gentry, that's the Fae, have been few and far between in Sydney these past few years. While it is not unheard of to hear the clarion call of a huntsman's horns or the baying of his hounds in the distance, seasonal kings and queens had developed a reputation for keeping the borders of the freehold safe for all lost, as long as they abide by the rules. Furthermore, venturing too far into the hedge is not recommended. Strange and evil things lurk on the edges of Sydney, after all. Newcomers are welcomed into the freehold on a probationary basis and are expected to present themselves to the thane or the steward of the ruling court for introductions and briefing on the rules, services, and other basic assistance. The court will find temporary residence, work, and a mentor if desired for the newly lost, and help them adjust to their new life. Welcome to Sydney. Right now, in Australia, it is winter, which is a very strange thing, and a lot of us that are from the Northern Hemisphere have to be cognizant of when we're playing this game. Because right now the winter court rules in Sydney, not the summer court. So on almost every other court, every other server out there right now that plays Changeling, almost every one, I'm sure, if not all others, summer court is in session. Not here. Winter court is. So that's different for us, right? We just have to be aware of that. Another thing to be aware of is that if you are new to this, and maybe you're coming from Changeling the Dreaming, which is from the old world of darkness. In Changeling the Dreaming, the Fae are, I want to say, a bit more positive. They don't have to be, but generally it's a little more upbeat game. It's a little more happy game. I would say out of all the old world of darkness games, Changeling is the most positive. It's not the most dark and evil. Okay, you can make it a very positive thing, okay? Changeling the Lost is not. Changeling the Lost, the Fae they can't be our friends. They are the boogeyman under the bed. They quite literally kidnapped us, tricked us, stole us into slavery, our characters. And they will do anything in their power to get us back since we escaped, right? They will do anything they can to get us back. They'll use trickery. They'll use violence. They'll do whatever they can. But as long as you are part of a court and you are part of a freehold, you have a better chance of that not happening. Not a perfect chance, but a better chance. There is no guarantee. Right? There's no guarantee. So right now, and every court has their innate, stereotypical talents and whatnot. And when they're in session, because the seasonal courts are tied directly to the world, the earth, okay, reality, that in and of itself allows the lost, the players, to have a defense against the Fae who come from the hedge, who come from the magical world that are not part of this world. So that anchor that we have of being part of a court and part of a freehold helps defend us and helps cloud the Fae and their denizens from seeing us. Not completely, but it helps, okay? And every court has a strength of how they do that, okay? Summer court. Summer court is the court of battle. If you look back in history, right, the war season, the fighting season was the summertime, right? So a lot of the Fae traditions in this game come from Celtic myth. Not all. By any stretch of the imagination, it's not all. They're very good with making it very holistic around the whole world. But some of the things like the seasonal courts and whatnot they're very, very Western European, very Celtic. Okay, so the summer season is the season of fighting. The summer court generally are a little more martial, more physical. They're all about the fight. Okay, the autumn court is a little more about the intel and the rumor gathering and subversion. Okay. Springtime, the spring court, they're about growth and preparation and happiness. All right. Not stupid giddy happiness. That's not what I mean, but like it's time to celebrate. Okay. And winter court tends to be a little more morose, and they are more conservative with resources. But at the same time, that doesn't make them quiet or meek or weak. They all have the ways that they bring the fight. Okay. So depending on what court is in session also kind of tailors what's going on. Like right now, in the Freehold, it's a little Hogwartsy. I'm not even going to lie to you. It's a little bit Hogwartsy there. Like there's snow in certain parts of the Freehold. This isn't downtown Sydney, but it's like Harry Potter in that sense. Like you go and you knock on the damn brick and the little door opens up and you go in, and it's in a place that nobody else, none of the mundanes, none of the muggles can see, right? It's this own little pocket inside the hedge that also touches the real world. Okay. So in our little city there, Market City Freehold, if you walk by the Winter Court's headquarters, their mansion, it's snowing on their front lawn. Because that's their season, so everything is kind of focused around that, right? 100 points to winter. Yes. So Kat says, if I recall correctly, winter's high tide means that the lost and gentry need to mourn their foes before their blade can draw blood again. That is part of it, and it's good that you've been looking into that, okay? There are certain things. Should the Fae attack, should the Fae try to make a push against the Freehold, they are bound by the rules of our area. Because that's how the Fae work. They are bound by rules. They are bound by promises. They are bound by oaths. Okay? So if they attack during certain times, there's things that have to happen first, or they just simply cannot do it. It's not even like they're standing there trying to. In their mind, they'll just say, oh, we can't do that right now. Why? Well, because we can't. Because the rules say we can't. They're bound by that. And I don't mean the rules in the book. I mean the rules of this universe that they're in. Yeah, the court section in the book is absolutely very, very interesting. Let me... Boop. So, on that... I want to show you this, too, if you're new to this. This picture right here. Let me get rid of my ugly face real quick. Boop. This is a very interesting picture, and this is neat. If you look here on the left-hand side of the picture, okay, there's a gentleman holding his glasses, and then you can see the back of the woman's head, right? And it's obviously they're a couple, right? And they're talking to each other. She's about to brush her teeth. It's morning or evening, whatever. Over here, she's smiling at her beloved in the mirror. But look at him here. He's a rag doll. He has button eyes. He's made of like burlap and he's stitched up, right? He's a fetch. And what that means is when this man here on the left, the real version of him was kidnapped by the Fae and taken into slavery in the hedge, into Arcadia and working for the Fae. They stitched together a doll out of leftover things, and they enchanted it, and it became him in his life, so nobody knew he was missing. Some dark horror shit, guys. It's some scary stuff. If any of you ever have that dream, I have it from time to time. I don't know if you guys do. You ever have the dream where you come home from somewhere and you're an adult now, but like in the dream, you're going back home to whatever house or apartment or whatever you grew up in, and when you get there, your family moved and they never told you where they were at, where they went. Like that's a thing, right? That freaks me out. I have this dream once in a while. Usually when I have like high anxiety, like if it's a real busy time of year or whatever, and my anxiety is a little higher than usual, I'll have that dream where I'm getting off the train. Okay. And I grew up in New Jersey, that we mass transit, and I live near a train station. And in my dream, I'm coming home on leave. I'm in the Navy. I'd been gone at boot camp and school for a year, and I hadn't been home. And I get off the train, and I'm walking across the street to go to my house where I grew up, where I spent the first 18 years of my life. And when I walk up to the front door, there's a different family living in there, and they have no clue where my family moved to, and my family never told me. So just think about how like holy shit, yeah, just like that would be a crazy ass dream, right? That would be a sickening feeling. That is Changeling the Lost in a nutshell. Okay, it's personal horror. It's personal horror. So there's the one section, again, we're going to go over here real quick. So she's talking about the seasonal courts. Kat's talking about the seasonal courts, but Crown of Seasons. So there's all kinds of stuff to do with the seasons. Okay, they have their own special abilities, their own oaths, all that. There's a lot of cool stuff in this game for that. And it's not just this book. There's a lot of expansion material, and there's new stuff coming out all the time, because Onyx Path has a program called the Storyteller's Vault, where if you're a player and you would like to write supplements for the game, you can write it and submit it to them. And if they approve it, they put it up on Drive-Thru RPG for sale, and you get paid. You get paid. So there's stuff out there player created that has become part of the lore and the canon of Changeling the Lost. That's really cool. Frosting says there are probably a lot of abandonment issues among the lost. I would say that is probably one of the central themes. Yeah. There's also, I think there's survivor's guilt is a big one. That's another big story lever. If you were taken 50 years ago is when you were kidnapped and taken into slavery with your keeper, with the Fae, and then all of a sudden it's 2022 and you pop out in Sydney, and everyone you knew is either, the children you knew are now grandparents and elderly, and the rest of your family and friends are have passed on, but you haven't. You're still here. Like that, you're gonna have survivor's guilt from that, right? There's all this stuff. Amnesia is a big thing with it too. When people think about amnesia, I think they think of it how it, like a TV show usually portrays it, which is somebody's like, I just don't remember anything about my past, and they're very casual about it. That's not how amnesia works. If you've ever met somebody who truly has either like severe onset quick amnesia due to trauma, or somebody who has amnesia, like legit amnesia, people tend to be, they're scared, they're completely lost, they are confused about many different things, and their entire life is just completely thrown off because their brain cannot figure out what the hell is going on. There's a reason why when we're babies and we come out of the womb and we take so many years to develop, and that's because the way of our brains develop, right? So it has to be done kind of at a slow and steady and repetitive pace. So if you have somebody with amnesia and all of a sudden 2/3 of what they know other than normal function is just gone, and somebody's coming up to them saying, I know you, we've been married for 10 years, and you're like, what? You start feeling like you're insane. So that's another big theme, because when you come out of the hedge, when you escape the hedge, you escape your durance, everything's a fog. From that whole time that you were there, that you were a prisoner, it's a fog. You only have these little tiny snippets of memory. And you got to work that into your character, into your story, and how you interact with people. You can't just be like, for the past 72 years, I've been doing this. But you don't remember that. But you pick up a tool and you look at it, and all of a sudden you get this flash inside your head of turning a wrench in a workshop and building something. But you just can't, it's on the tip of your tongue. You can't remember what it is. Eventually it'll come to you through the story. You'll do things, you'll find things that help you remember. But you don't just have all those memories in your head when you start playing your character. Personal horror. You have to build that story. You have to intentionally have your character ignore things that you know are truth from their past in order to make the story better for yourself and for growth. So, Fro, what's up, brother? Am I frozen? So yeah, and that's the thing, is that this is definitely a game for those that are creative. If you're a very creative person, this is something that you're definitely going to enjoy. Yeah, my buddy Roz just said you got to update your page, your about page for Twitch now that I'm not doing the Eve stuff anymore. I will definitely get to that. So right now, guys, we've got about a dozen and a half active players that are sanctioned on the server. Okay, dozen and a half active players sanctioned on the server, and that's growing every week. If somebody is very new at this, we generally ask them if they want to do what we call a fresh from the hedge scenario. And I'm going to show you guys one quickly right now. I'm going to read it, so I'll try not to bore you. Hold on. Which I know right now, Smashies is like, too late. I'm going to drink before I do this. And we're going to kind of start wrapping it up after this. Chumpkin says, I only have experience with Changeling the Dreaming. How much impact to STs have in the amnesia aspect of a new CTL character, if any? Chumpkin, it's more of a guidance thing, okay? So what happens is the way you regain memories in Changeling the Lost is through increasing there's a mechanic on your sheet called your Weird, W-Y-R-D, your Weird, and that is how connected your character is to their Fey, their Changeling Fey lifestyle that when they were captured and they were reformed by that fairy into when they were molded into whatever they became. Okay, the higher your Weird, the more connected you are to it. Okay, that also means for good and for bad. Just having a high Weird doesn't mean that you're like this cool super character that remembers everything. You also start taking on some of the frailties of the Fae, like if you know any of the old fairy tales, some characters in the stories, like if you clapped your hands 3 times, then it would be like a bell ringing over their head, and it would drive them insane, and they couldn't do anything. They'd have to put their hands over their ears. That might be something that happens to you when you hit Weird 3. If somebody they can clap 4 times, you're fine. Then clap 2 times, you're fine. But they clap 3 times, and you're on the ground vomiting. Okay, like there's frailties that come with it. However, at Weird 3, you're also remembering pretty good sized chunks of what happened. You can also find these items in the hedge, or other people can find them, that are pieces of your soul that was ripped out when you ran away, that the hedge, the thorns, tore out of your being. And each time you get another one of those, your memories come back. That part of you comes back. Think of it like, what are those things called from Harry Potter for Voldemort? He has those little things that house pieces of his soul, the Horcruxes. Think of it something like that, but not in an evil way. Like you get a Horcrux, you get one of your items back, your icons back. That helps you recover a piece of who you were. So that's a central part of your personal story too, is trying to recover those, trying to find them. And it could be anything from like an hourglass, because it's usually a physical representation. An hourglass, it can be a piece of paper shaped like a heart, but that was really your heart. It's just now it's a piece of paper. So now you have it back. It's things like that. Okay, there's a lot of alliteration, a lot of representation, a lot of that kind of storyline stuff in from fairy tales in Changeling the Dreaming. So Jake says, high Weird is great until you start reliving your trauma and accidentally inflicting it on those around you. There you go. See, the cool thing about the way that this game was developed is just having high stats doesn't make you uber. Having high stats gives you a bunch of drawbacks as well that you're going to have to think about while you're dealing with it. So, real quick, I don't think Kith matters much to it. Let's see. So part of it would be backstory and part would be like Kith mechanics, features. So the Kith, okay, we'll go into a little bit of the basics of this. So they've really run down, okay, Changeling the Dreaming, your Kith is who you are, right? Just like in Vampire the Masquerade, your clan is who you are, right? So let me shrink this down a little bit, make this a little easier to read. There we go. And that's all there is. In Chronicles of Darkness, you'll have two aspects of yourself. And this gives you a lot a lot of customization efforts. Okay, let me give you an example for an either or. Okay, so if you're looking at Changeling the Dreaming, if you're a puka, okay, you are a shapeshifter. You are a commoner fae who can turn into some type of animal. Okay, and that's basically what you base your character around. Oh, and you kind of like to tell fibs. Okay, and that's pretty much as, you know, there's more to it, but that's pretty much what it is, right? Here you go, you're puka. Okay, let me tell you this: in Changeling the Lost, anyone can be a puka. Anyone. Okay, because you have seemings, you have your seemings and your kiths. Okay, so a seeming is kind of what you look like, and I'm not going to get into all the details of it, but like, look here, you have a beast. Okay, so, and it kind of tells you generally what that is. Okay, so they have their own curses. In addition to your character's other breaking points, risk clarity damage whenever acting without thinking causes significant harm or complications to somebody else. You kind of pick, like, what do I want to look like? All right, what do I want to look like? What's part of my backstory going to be? Darklings. Don't think Slua when you look at this. It's not a one-for-one changeover. This was very hard for my brain to wrap around when I came to Changeling the Lost. Okay, because you're taking parts of things and making a whole. Sorry, I bumped the microphone again. So you're taking all these different parts of things and you're making your own character class, because everyone's different, right? So there's Darklings, there's Elementals, okay? There's all this stuff. The fairest are the pretty ones, okay? There's Ogres, there's the tough ones. And it's funny because I look at this and the first thing that comes to mind is Ogres. Oh, that's Trolls. It's not. It is not. Kind of is, but not, all right? And then from there, you've got your kiths, okay? And that helps you refine down a little more for mechanic reasons what you are. So let me click the kith button, okay? So kiths, you have the artist, okay? So the first thing that's going to pop to your mind there is, like, that can technically be a satyr or a boggin, depending on how you make it, okay? Like if you're trying to make those connections, all right? Oh, I guess, and see, even there, so even a chatelaine. Oh, okay, or a knocker. They can even be a knocker, an artist, okay? Chatelaine, kind of bogginy, but kind of satyry as well. I mean, there's all these different ways you can go with it. It depends on how you want to make it. Gristle grinder, oh, red cap, but not exactly. There's all these different ways you can do it, okay? And it's so much more open. Hello there. Hey, Aeon. It's so much more open with what you can do with it. That doesn't mean that it's better than dreaming. Okay. It's just different because, again, in dreaming, you can make a character that you develop for years on a server and have a lot of fun with it. And, they can just have a real good time. You can do the same thing in the Lost, except the good time's going to be different because that good time that you're having means that your character is going through some real tribulations. All right. And that doesn't just mean that they're having a suck ass life. They could be growing. They could be getting to be closer to the person they once were, or growing into an entirely new person than they were before because they don't want to be that person anymore. It's just Chronicles of Darkness is so much more open. And that's why it's a little bit daunting because there are so many books out there. There's the Chronicles of Darkness core book. Then there's Dark Eras 1 and 2. Then you've got the Changeling the Lost book. There's so many books out there that build into this that can add to it. It's just a lot more open world, I guess, is the closest way I can say that. It's a lot more open world. So yeah, traumatize your characters daily. Not necessarily, but a lot of the trauma that comes from it isn't that someone is inflicting it upon you. Sometimes it's your character is just simply realizing that something that right now that is commonplace is actually something that was a horror before. An example of that, let's say someone is playing a beast chatelaine. Okay, so their beast, their Feymeen, the way they look to other changelings and in the hedge is like that dude we were looking at up there a little while ago that had like the fox ears, the animal ears. Okay, but he's a chatelaine, so he is to serve. He likes to clean up. He serves. He's very boggany, all right, for my dreaming folks. And he really likes to bake bread. That's his thing. He doesn't know why, but he loves to bake bread and try new recipes. And then one day, he gets one of his icons back, and it triggers a memory. And that memory is of him baking his fellow lost into bread. Them being carved up and their bones ground up with a flour mill, and making bread for his Fey keeper out of the bones of his fellows. So that thing that he loved, that he was part of him, that he thought was, this is just something I love to do and it gives me comfort, really had a dark reason behind it. So yeah, right? Very fee-fi fo fum, right? But think about that. That could be a thing. Could be a thing. Doesn't necessarily mean it will always be. Not everything is dark, but it always has the opportunity to be. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the ST is going to decide that for you. That's generally a collaboration between us. On our character sheet, we have some really good character development questions that we ask everyone to do. It's not required, but when you go through it, it kind of walks you through your character. And then when you're done with that, if you do that first and you fill it out properly and really put some love into it, it pretty much builds your character for you. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool system. Yeah, it really is an amazing sheet. Jake did a fantastic job on that. He just put out another revision today where he added drop downs for equipment with that just automatically puts the stats of the equipment on your sheet for you. Freaking great stuff. He does a great job on it. So, bravo to Jake. So, okay, so what we're going to do real quick is I am going to quickly read to you. We're at an hour and 10 minutes. I'm going to read to you guys an intro. This is for someone who is brand new to the server, and they chose to do what we call fresh from the hedge, meaning their character is starting on our server, literally plop, just falling out of the hedge and running away from their what we call their durance, which is their time that they were enslaved in the hedge. So I'm just going to go through this real quick. This is one that I'm currently running. This stuff here that's blacked out is just talking about the rules for the player. We do this in a private channel, and it says, their blood is on your hands. You wipe them in the dirt, but the stains will not go away. You feel like you are marked for eternity by the act you've committed. You can still hear their cry, their plea for mercy as you struck them down. As the light passed from their eyes, you saw something you didn't expect, a smile. Release. First, they were scared to die at your hand, but as the mortal blow fell, and their last moment of clarity rang true in their imprisoned soul, they were set free. Was that gratefulness on their dying face? Was it pity for you? Why? Why would your victim show you pity? Now, just so you know, I wrote this story, but I wrote it based on the input from the player I'm running this for. I didn't just come up with this out of my head. I read through their character development questions. I read their backstory. I looked at their character sheet. And from everything that they put in there, they did a great job on adding this stuff. They did a great job of putting together the background for this character, which is kind of interesting because the second the story's over, they don't remember any of that. That's going to sit there for a while as they slowly get some of this stuff back. But it allowed me to build this story to introduce them to the server. The realization of what was happening hit you like a hammer's blow to the temple. You were also a prisoner, a slave to him, your beloved, in a gilded cage shaped like a beautiful manor house with manicured gardens, fantastical creatures, and endless sunsets. You were nothing but a toy who could run. And that's my dog Horkin in the background. And that's what you did. You ran down the path behind the field where you found the other slave and ended their suffering. Down the path shrouded in darkness between unnaturally tall hedgerows, the vines growing across the path behind you as you ran. It seemed like hours, days. Eventually you came to a turn and a dead end. The hedge, however, was still closing in. Vines were reaching for you. You willed yourself to escape. You refused to let it end here this way. You saw a faint violet glow through the brambles before you. You took a deep breath and you pushed in. Pain, exquisite, mind-tearing, sensual, horrific pain. Your body, your soul was being torn apart as you pushed through. Fog. Memories conflicted inside your head. A dream? Walking along the docks in London. Walking along a garden path with an impossibly beautiful man. A carriage ride through South Hornsey. The poor children running up to the carriage begging for money. Blackness. Rain. Cold. The smell of the sea. Could you be in Ramsgate, Gillingham? You crack open a swollen, blurry eye. The ground is black and hard. A sign in English. That's a good omen, at least. If only you knew how you got here and where here is. Raising up on a hand, you feel the pain across your torn flesh. With all these cuts, it is a wonder you haven't bled out by now. You try and bring a knee up, but the pain is too intense. You roll on your side, moan and vomit. Rolling onto your back, you see a light. Strange, it's a gas lamp, but it's much brighter than it should be. Odd. So just so you know, this character was kidnapped in Victorian England. So now they're in Sydney, Australia in 2022. So just keep that in mind when you hear some of this stuff. After what feels like a month and a day, you roll over onto your side and you start scooting up into a sitting position. Your hand falls on something small, round, cold, and metallic. A penny. Your penny. The one Mum gave you. You grasp it in your fist, and you feel reassured that this isn't a dream. This isn't real. That's their token, by the way. A token is something that helps them anchor to the real world. It's something that has to be listed on your character sheet. It actually has a mechanic to it in the game. Sitting up, wiping your mouth on your shirt. What are these clothes you're wearing? And taking a deep breath. The cold is bracing, the rain running down your face and across your lips, helping you focus on the real. Pushing your hair back out of your face, you look around. There's that sign. Bondi Beach. Bondi Beach, never heard of it. Maybe it's down past Dover. You hear footsteps to your left. You look and see a figure approaching. They are cloaked in the shadows of the night, but you can tell they are standing about 10 or so meters from you, hands on their hips. Well, now I can see why Storm called me, a male voice says with a slight Irish brogue. You have a name, boy? And it begins. And from there, me and the player begin to interact. Okay? So that's pretty much how I start off. I pretty much start off a lot. Not exactly like that, but somewhat similar. I start off with whatever event caused them to realize that they were a prisoner, and I bring them through to falling out of the hedge, and then we interact to get them to the freehold. And it's usually an NPC will be the one that encounters them, and then we get them to the freehold, and from there we release them, and they can have fun and RP all they want. So, I'm not the greatest storyteller. I do put a lot of effort into it because I want it to be fun. I feel that if we make a good first impression with a character, with a player, with the Fresh from the Hedge adventures, and it's that personal one-on-one interaction, that it sets them up for success on the server. So that is something else we do. We don't just throw people out there and say good luck. We're doing our best to keep things fun and interesting and engaging, but still part of the story. All right, the greater story as well as their personal story. Lost get lost. I appreciate that, Frost. I'm really trying my best to do better, and I'm trying to learn from every story I tell. We are currently running a story at the Centennial Shipwreck, which is an actual shipwreck off the coast of Sydney. And in that right now, we have some people that are going diving into a nightmare-riddled underwater area. We are doing an aquatic subsurface storyline that are going to have some really, really cool, crazy shit that happens. So I'm excited about that. I got 5 players on that one right now. So, yep, there you go. You're actually in that quest. So there's going to be some crazy shit that goes on with that. And some of it actually ties into like the weather that's going on right now actually in Sydney, as well as some other things that are going to be coming up in future storylines on the server. So this is our first ST-driven story that is going to have far-reaching effects on the meta of the entire server. So I'm excited to do it. Okay, well, we're at an hour and 18 minutes right now. I'm going to start wrapping it up. If you enjoyed this today, please give me a follow here on Twitch. I would really appreciate it. Helps keep my numbers up, and it allows me to keep doing this. I really do appreciate those follows for my subscribers that are in here. I do appreciate you doing it. I promise I'll be doing more now that I'm getting back on track. If you are an EVE Online subscriber for us here, I apologize, but I'm telling you right now, there's not going to be much more EVE content moving into the future. EVE is dying. So, and it needs to. So I apologize for that, but that's just how it is. I don't even have the game installed on my computer anymore. And that's a lot from a guy who played the game for 18 years for me to say that, and who has flown all around the world to go to meetups and stuff for the game. That tells you something. But I have sunk the majority of my time into doing these servers like we're talking about right now, like Lost in Sydney. If you are interested in the Lost in Sydney server and you think you would be a good fit to play on the server, you can contact me through Discord. It is doc #, whatever you kids call it, 3104. You can reach out to me from there. Just send me a DM and say, hey, I'm interested in possibly joining the Lost in Sydney server, and we will get you a copy of the questionnaire that you have to fill out and get back to us. Like I said, there is no open links. We don't just send links to people to come to the server. It's not how it works. You have to go through a vetting process. So just please be aware of that. We're looking for people who are actually interested in world building and socializing on the server, not people that are just going to come here and try to break the game and be a dick. But other than that, I mean, thank you guys. I really, really appreciate y'all. All my new followers out there, all you guys that just followed me here in the last hour or so. And I'm just going to keep on for a couple more minutes. I'm going to open it up to questions. If you got questions, go ahead and post it in chat. We'll do like next 3 minutes or so. If you got questions, go ahead and type them in and we'll answer the best we can. We love you long time too, Joe. Hope everything's going well in whatever games you're playing. Frosty Cat says, before we end it, what is glamour? The book calls it the essence of Arcadia, but how should I play using it? Is it something physical or is it purely just essence? So a little bit of both. So glamour is, if you've played Vampire, okay, this is the best example I can give. Blood. The vampire uses its blood. It is a resource, right? The blood allows the vampire to make things happen. Glamour, yeah, the answer is yes, because it's both of those things. Glamour is something that you can harvest from dreamers, from humans, from in certain ways. That it's not necessarily an evil way. Sometimes you can inspire someone to do something or have a conversation with someone and get them excited, and that excitement that exudes off of them actually fuels your glamour. But it can also be refined as well. Like it can actually be a physical thing. I in my mind, I think of glamour looking like a little tube of honey. That's just what's in my head. But yes, it is, you do need it. You most certainly need it, because that is how you use your contracts. That is how you do a lot of things. You have to spend glamour to do it. Okay. Yeah, metaphysical is the metaphysical energy of emotion. That's a good way to put it. Any tips on how to play using it? I don't even have to necessarily give you tips. If you look at most of your contracts on your sheet, it'll say that there's a glamour cost on there. The thing for newer players to this that usually get confused with it is how to regain glamour. And if you look in our, where is it? It's up here in the, I think it's the resources section. Where do I have it? Me. Guides and how to. There is a area on how to harvest glamour. Okay. And it talks about it on page 103 of the Changeling the Lost 2nd edition core book. But I give a little example of how to harvest glamour. Okay. That's the important part there. Also, if you're running the stories, if you are in the stories that we do, any glamour that generally, not always, but any glamour that you spend, if you're on a job for the freehold or something, they will replace your glamour at the end of it. Generally, not always. Yeah. So there is different ways that it tells you that you have to use it. And there's also things like loopholes that can help with the costs of spending things for contracts. If you do a certain thing, you might not have to spend the glamour, or you might, get a bonus or whatever. So in Changeling the Dreaming, that was called bunks. You would do a bunk, and that would lower your it would make the difficulty go down. In Changeling the Lost, we have loopholes. So it's just a different mechanic, and it's in the book. I promise you, it's in there. If you take a look at it, you will find it. But page 103 of Changeling the Lost, and you'll be able to see it. But yeah, Generally, and harvesting glamour is something you can do as a solo RP thing. You can put yourself in one of the zones on the server and type up your thing, and then do your rolls, and then just put in your storyline on how to do it. So what is a contract? So Jake wants to kind of just throw that out there, so we're doing more of the basics of this. A contract is a ability. It is a magical thing that you can do. Okay, and in Changeling the Dreaming, it is it's an art. It's one of your arts. Okay, so like an example would be, let me pull one up here so I can point at it. Another cool thing about Changeling versus Dreaming is in Changeling you can take contracts or abilities from a whole bunch of different areas. You don't have to specialize as much. Where is it? It's over here, isn't it? Contracts. Here we go. So let's go to. We'll go to jewels. Okay, so jewels. So a contract is an ability, right? So there's two different types. There's commons and royals. I'm not getting into all that right now. I'm going to do a whole show on that. But it is an ability that you gain by making oh, there you go. He just typed it. A bargain you have with a facet of reality. So when you so something stolen from the Fae that you've wiggled yourself into. It's something that you kept. It's an ability that you kept when you crossed over the hedge, or that you gain afterwards in certain ways. Okay. So again, we'll look at like spinning wheel. This is always a fun one. The Changeling rivals the Gentries, that's the Fae, thievery of lives, and can guide his target's future to a single point within the next month. So in this, if you make a success, the Changeling names an experience, which must be reasonably probable and not overly specific for his target. Examples include meeting the Autumn Queen or getting hit by a car. All rolls leading to this event made by the target or other characters gain bonus dice equal to the successes equal to the invoke the contract. Okay, so basically he gets to kind of buff somebody with something. If you're a fairest, all right, if you're one of the fairest, then you gain the 3 bonus dice to invoke this contract to help you out. So there are things that are more focused. If you're an ogre, you gain 3 bonus dice to invoke this contract when encouraging a negative experience. And then the loophole, the Changeling pricks his target with a needle or pin, drawing at least 1 droplet of blood. Drawing 1 droplet of blood from a willing target inflicts no damage. And then that way they can get out of paying the cost for it. Okay? So I know I'm kind of blowing through this really quick, but like I said, this is not really the intent of this particular broadcast. We're going to probably do a whole, like a Changeling the Lost 101 series. I can do a whole series on that. So that'll be fun. But it is your magical powers, I guess is the basic way to put it. It's your magical powers. And there's a shit ton of them. And then there's some that are called goblin contracts. And the cool thing about goblin contracts is that while they tend to be pretty effective, pretty powerful, pretty useful, every time you use them, you owe. You don't just pay your glamour and you go about your merry way. When you use the goblin ones, you owe. There's a cost. So it adds that to the game. And I know some people are like, why would you even take that? Because some people like to role play hardship. And some of those abilities are really cool, so you pay the cost because you really want that ability. So there's a trade-off. Everything involving the Fae is balance. Okay? Everything is balance. That doesn't mean fairness. Balance does not mean fairness. But there is balance. Everything has a cost. And you have to decide if you're willing to pay that cost or not. Because failure to pay the cost can have dire consequences. So, because sacrifice, right. Okay. I think I'm going to wrap it up there. Really appreciate y'all sitting here with me for the last hour and a half. I really enjoyed talking with you guys. Thank you to chat for being so talkative and inquisitive. More roleplay prompts. Exactly. We love, storytellers on Lost in Sydney love when you guys use goblin contracts. We do. We also love when you guys choose to take a botch, a dramatic failure, because that allows us to get creative with things. We got a player right now that has a bad reputation with the Autumn Court simply because he chose to take a dramatic fail, because you get more experience if you do that. You get a little experience bump. They're called beats, the experience. And he chose to take it, and now he has to pay the price for that, which is the Autumn Court is now looking at him like he's a jerk off. So he's got to do some RP repair work to fix that. But it was worth it. What's up, Syph? Okay, so he said I have no fucking clue what the fuck you're talking about. I'm glad I showed up at the end. Yeah, Rob, this is not your type of game. I will say that. This is definitely not your type of game. Everybody, Cypher there is one of my longtime friends, co-hosts of many of the shows we've done through the years. And he is if you are a Changeling the Dreaming player, he is the closest thing to a real red cap that you will ever find. So, all right, guys, I'm going to cut it off there. Is this the Evil Online Anonymous meeting? No, that building got burned down too, brother. But I'm going to go ahead and edit here. I'm going to go out, and my wife and I are going to go get some dinner. And then I'll be back because I've got some stories to run for people on the Lost in Sydney server. So again, if you are interested in it, simply reach out to me, Doc, #3104 on Discord, and I will get you with the correct person that can get you the stuff to vet you for the thing, for the questionnaire to see if you're a fit for our server. But other than that, I really appreciate y'all, everybody coming on and following and joining the conversation. And we'll do another one of these next week. This video will also be saved and posted on the Lost in Sydney YouTube channel. So for those of you that might have missed it and are watching that, thank you for supporting us on YouTube as well. So thanks a lot, guys. Have a good one, and take care.